What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be trying a very different style of video to what I normally post. I have no GBL gameplay to commentate over because, to be honest, the game just feels super stale right now, but something that would make the meta feel a lot more exciting is if trainers actually experimented a bit more, tried out some riskier glass cannon Pokemon, and prioritized having fun over the highest possible win percentage. So now you might be wondering, well, which glass cannons are actually worth building, which ones are fun to use, and which ones should I avoid powering up unless they receive a significant move update in the future? Well, that's what this video should hopefully answer for you, as I'm going to be ranking around 80 of the most attack-weighted Pokemon in the Open Great League based on how good they are, how fun they are, and whether or not they're worth building given the amount of time and resources it might take to get them. Now, do bear in mind, we're probably just a few days away from a big move update announcement, which could completely change the rankings of some of these Pokemon, and also, this list is just my opinion. You may have had a better or worse experience with some of the Pokemon on this list in the past that might impact how you'd rank it personally, but if that's the case, please feel free to let me know which rankings you don't agree with. Also, I have taken in the shadow bonus into account for these attack-weighted Pokemon, so there's a few Pokemon like Morpeko, for example, that technically do have a higher attack stat than a few of the Pokemon on this list, but with that 20% shadow bonus damage, that actually is going to give them a artificially higher attack stat. Now, this is, of course, as I mentioned, very different from the usual content that I make, which means that it's quite likely that this video will flop, at least in terms of views. So if you do enjoy this video and you find it somewhat useful, it is really important to show your support by liking the video, hyping the video, and leaving a comment, even if actually you don't enjoy the video. If you have any suggestions on what I could have done differently to make the video better, please do leave your feedback in the comment section down below. And with that being said, let's get into the question of the day. If you could buff one extreme glass cannon next season, which Pokemon would you choose and how would you buff it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And with that being said, let's get into the rankings now. Alright, so here is the tier list. I might as well run you through each of the tiers. So at the very bottom, we've got so bad that even I haven't built one yet. These are mostly going to be Pokemon that either, like, maybe they're shadow legendaries that just cost an awful lot, and I just don't have the, like, candies to actually double move them and Stardust to double move them. Also, lots of, like, really XL Pokemon, maybe level 50 Pokemon that just have an awful moveset to the point where actually it's so difficult to get the XL candies and the Stardust to build these Pokemon that they're just really not worth building at all. We then got one of my worst ever GBL investments. So these are Pokemon that I have actually built, but I kind of regret building because they are just absolutely awful to use. There's almost no scenario where they're actually going to be usable in the game, so unfortunately, just not very good at all. Then we've got used to be better, but has fallen off big time. So unfortunately, there's quite a few Pokemon that have been indirectly nerfed over the past few years, where when I actually built them, they were kind of fun to use, but unfortunately now have received several nerfs due to other Pokemon being strong, and unfortunately are just nowhere near as good as they used to be. We then got not an awful Pokemon, but also not that exciting. So these Pokemon, they're not that hard to use sometimes, but they just don't give you that wow factor. They maybe don't have like any nuke potential or something like that. So honestly, these are actually going to be slightly more usable Pokemon than maybe a few of the higher tiers here, but they're just not that fun to run. So if you're looking to have fun specifically, maybe these Pokemon aren't going to be the ones that you want to build. But then we've got very difficult to use but can be fun in limited metas. So these are the types of Pokemon that honestly have almost no play in the Open Great League, might have very niche use in certain limited metas, but when they do have that use, they are really fun to play. Next up, we've got basically the same thing, just slightly more extreme. So we've got really fun at times but hard to use. These Pokemon can also be somewhat usable in the Open Great League, but again, usually pretty difficult to use. But when they pop off, oh my god, they are so fun to use. And then next up, we've got super fun to use and also quite good. So these Pokemon are actually pretty usable and they're fun, so that's a great combination, and these are definitely the Pokemon that fit into this tier, should be the ones that you should be looking to build. And then at the very top, we've got genuinely the most fun Pokemon I've ever built. Now, I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to put just a single Pokemon into this tier or if I'll have several. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this tier list, but anyways, with that being said, let's just get into the rankings. So first of all, we've got a Alolan Shadow Dug Trio. Now, unfortunately, this Pokemon is going to go into the used to be better, but has fallen off big time. This Pokemon has Mud Slap, which of course got nerfed this season. It's also got Mud Bomb, which costs more energy this season. So that combination basically just makes this Pokemon a lot worse than it used to be. But next up, we've got Shadow Abra, and this is going to be the first one going into the bottom tier. I have actually not built this Pokemon yet. I have one that's got somewhat decent IVs that I have considered, but unfortunately, I think its fast move options are either Charge Beam or Zen Headbutt, both of which are just awful fast moves. If this thing got like Psywave as a fast move, honestly, I would genuinely just build it straight up, because this Pokemon would be really fun. If you didn't know, this Pokemon's actually, with that Shadow bonus, probably the second most attack weighted Pokemon in the entire game outside of Attack Form Deoxys. But yeah, at the moment, unfortunately, it is just completely awful. Now, next up, we've got Shadow Kadabra, and unfortunately, this is going to have to go in one of my worst ever GBL investments. I've tried this a few times, and honestly, it's just so difficult to use. Both Psycho Cut and Confusion are way better fast moves than what Abra's got to work with. However, it's just got way too expensive charge moves. Shadow Ball is now 50 energy, but that likely gets nerfed again next season. So Shadow Ball and Dazzling Gleam, good coverage options, but it just really needs a cheaper move. Next up, we've got Shadow Alakazam, and I'm going to have to say this one is definitely a lot more usable than the Kadabra, just because it does have access to Fire Punch. Fire Punch is going to be a lot cheaper than any of the moves that Shadow Kadabra has. I'm sort of torn between here and here. I have used it in the Open Great League, so maybe we'll put it here. It could also technically be in used to be better, but has fallen off big time, as when it ran Counter, when Counter was actually a really good fast move, honestly, it was pretty good to use. But next up, we've got Shadow Magnemite. This Pokemon probably also going to fit into the really fun at times, but hard to use. This Pokemon, obviously, back when Mud Slap was really strong last season, it was almost impossible to use. I'd honestly put it down here. But now, because Mud Slap has been nerfed, they're not as common as they used to be. If you go up against like a Mud Shot user, for example, like a Swampert or a Quagsire, yes, of course, they're still going to absolutely delete you, but you will at least reach a charge move, which is definitely something. And then Shadow Magneton is basically the same thing, actually just a lot cheaper to use. So in terms of like the investment, the amount of Stardust that you had to put into building this Pokemon, this is definitely going to rank higher. However, of course, if you're someone that likes to run really weird stuff like a Shadow Magnemite, for example, maybe you would rank that slightly higher. But next up, we've got Shadow Ghastly, and this Pokemon is going to have to go here. I think it is a Pokemon that has been nerfed slightly. Nightshade isn't quite as good as it used to be since Galarian Corsola was so strong, but this Pokemon, when you can align it right, this thing is so fun. But oh my god, this Pokemon is insanely glassy, similar to Abra in terms of like its stat product. It's just crazy glassy. It also doesn't even get that close to 1500 CP either. Next up, we've got Shadow Haunter, and I'm borderline thinking super fun, but also quite good. This Pokemon, maybe not quite as good as it used to be, not actually due to any nerfs specifically, but just because of how the meta has shifted. You got Pokemon like Furret, which are just going to completely destroy it now, like Licky Licky, for example. I'm tempted to put it here, but I think we probably have to just keep it here. And the same's going to go for the Shadow Gengar. Gengar actually now has coverage into normal type Pokemon with Drain Punch, which, whilst not exactly a hard-hitting move, is actually kind of decent for Shadow Gengar because it's so attack weighted that Drain Punch kind of does decent damage anyways. And of course, you do end up boosting your defense as well. Next up, Shadow Krabby. This Pokemon is going to fall in here. I don't think it's nearly as bad as the Shadow Abra. However, I just don't have the resources to build one at the moment. It will be an XL Pokemon. I have recently just built a non-Shadow Krabby. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to build this Pokemon anytime soon. But next up, we've got Shadow Kingler. And I think I'm going to have to put this one in the same rankings as Shadow Ghastly. It is, unfortunately, pretty difficult to use. I've also used an Elite Fast TM on it recently to give it Mud Shot, which I'm hoping doesn't get a nerf again. Obviously, it did just get buffed back to what it used to be this season. But yeah, this Pokemon, it did have some play. I can't remember which limited meta I tried it out in, but actually it was kind of usable in that meta, but still pretty tough. Now, Shadow Hitmonlee, I've tried to make this Pokemon work. It did get buffed this season. It does learn Low Kick, which I actually haven't tried it with Low Kick yet, or at least for a specific video. I'm kind of tempted to put it here. Every time I try to use it, it kind of just flops. But maybe I should put it here. There probably is a limited meta for it. Actually, you know what? No. Any limited meta that it would be available for is likely going to be where fighting types are allowed, in which case there are just so many way better fighting types. So yeah, unfortunately, probably just not a very good investment. Shadow Pinsir, on the other hand, I think is definitely a lot better. It does unfortunately get walled quite easily by a lot of Pokemon, so I can't really put it any higher than this tier. Now, Shadow Moltres actually got buffed, triple buffed this season, with Wing Attack being restored to what it used to be. You've also got gained access to Heatwave got buffed this season, and then what else was the other buff? I can't remember. I think it gained access to fly this season. But yeah, this Pokemon honestly pretty good to use this season now. We've got Shadow Mewtwo, and I think I'm gonna have to also put it in this tier. I think this is probably gonna be the most common tier, like Pokemon that are pretty fun to use, but like just kind of not amazing to use either. Now we got Shadow Murkrow. This Pokemon is super fun, but also it is pretty good as well. So definitely the most usable Pokemon on the tier list by far so far. We then got Shadow Houndoom, and unfortunately I'm going to have to say that this is definitely one that is only really usable in limited metas, mostly metas where maybe you don't expect fire types to be that good, so having that Fire Fang, just huge fast move pressure, could be very strong in certain limited metas, but in the Open Great Leagues specifically, it is absolutely awful. Next up, Shadow Ursaring. This is a Pokemon that honestly goes somewhere between super fun and also quite good, but also really fun at times, but hard to use. I'm going to put it towards the top. I mean, to be honest, I'm not really ranking these in a specific order, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, this is borderline into the second tier there, but not quite. Shadow Blaziken, I think, honestly, after the Ember and Aura Sphere buffs, maybe we put it all the way up here. This is a really good Pokemon to use, actually. Really fun as well. We've got Breloom, which I think is kind of one for just limited metas. In the Open Great League, I feel like it's not that great. Same for Shadow Manectric, although actually Manectric, it kind of does have more play than you might expect in the Open Great League. I think just based on how common stuff like Azumarill, Jellicent are, this thing can put in a ton of work, so maybe we do bump it up here. It definitely has a lot of play in certain limited metas. Next up, Sharpedo, and yeah, this is definitely on the sort of more fun end, but unfortunately, yeah, it is kind of just a limited meta Pokemon. Now, Shadow Trapinch, at the moment, unfortunately, I kind of have to put it here. I have spent like literally months walking this thing, but it is so bad in its current state. It did also get buffed recently with Sandtoon now actually being a decent move. But even then, like, I've tried this a few times. I don't remember a single game where I was like, oh man, Shadow Trapinch, that was actually sick what you just did there. So unfortunately, also just due to how long it took to build this Pokemon, yeah, it kind of has to go in there. Whereas Shadow Cacnea, for example, my most recent buddy, I think is actually has a lot more play than the Trapinch does, so I'm going to have to put it here. Now, Shadow Cacturn, this might have to just go right to the top there. Genuinely the most fun Pokemon I've ever built. Honestly, this Pokemon never disappoints. It is so fun to run, and yeah, I think maybe we can add a few more Pokemon to this tier and then we can adjust it later on. But at the moment, this is the clear favorite for that top tier. Next up, we got Shadow Crawdont. And actually, after the Waterfall buff, I'd definitely say this is a lot better this season. Probably would have been down here, honestly, before that. Whereas now, it's definitely just sort of on par with the likes of Shadow Sharpedo. Next up, we've got Shadow Anorith, and that's another Pokemon that is XL. I have not built it yet, and unfortunately, its fast move options, I think it's got like Hidden Power and Struggle Bug. Just, yeah, really awful fast moves. Oh, no, it's not Hidden Power, sorry. It's got Scratch and Struggle Bug, which honestly might be even worse for it. And yeah, unfortunately, if it just gets a slightly better fast move, maybe like Fury Cutter, for example, could end up building it. It could go as high as maybe here, but at the moment, absolutely awful Pokemon, and so I've not built it, and I can't rank it any higher than that. Now, Shadow Banette is sort of, I don't think it's really even that usable in limited metas, but I don't want to say it's one of the worst GBL investments ever, just because the Shadow Claw Shadow Ball combination is actually still pretty usable, and if you do give it maybe a shield advantage, allow it to like fast move farm down something, then honestly this Pokemon can pop off, but I definitely can't rank it any higher than this. Now, Shadow Absol, after the Psycho Cut buff and gaining access to Brutal Swing, this Pokemon also sort of fits into this category. I can't really put it any higher just because it is so attack weighted that honestly you barely live the fast move pressure in neutral situations to get to more than like 2 Brutal Swings at most. Next up, Shadow Salamence, and I'm actually going to put this maybe in... I'm going to put this here. It's pretty viable in certain limited metas, especially since it's got like a decent amount of like fast move options. You can also run Fire Fangs if maybe you need that fire type damage, but also you do have, of course, Dragon Tail. And then coverage moves, you've got Fly, you've got Brutal Swing, you've got Draco Meteor, Outrage, you've got Fire Blast, Hydro Pump, a lot of different options there, some nuke potential as well. Next up, we got Shadow Latios, and I'm going to put this here. This is honestly one of my favorite, well, it is literally my favorite Pokemon. Unfortunately, like the current Open Great League meta, it's not that kind to it, but it does have great coverage with the Aura Sphere now. So honestly, really fun. I would love to put it here, but unfortunately, I just can't really justify it as a also quite good Pokemon. So we're going to have to leave it there. Now, Attack Form Deoxys. This Pokemon is... I don't want to say it's here just because it is really fun to use, so we're going to put it into very difficult to use but can be fun in limited metas. It is also the case it can be fun in the Open Great League, but like the amount of Pokemon that can actually just fast move farm this thing down before you even reach a single Psycho Boost is kind of insane. But next up we got Shadow Star Raptor. This Pokemon really fun, but again, it doesn't have that much play in the Open Great League right now. Maybe it has more play than a lot of these Pokemon, however, so maybe we'll put it here. It's got great coverage as well. If you didn't want to run Close Combat to debuff yourself, you could also run Heat Wave, which got buffed this season as well, which is quite nice. But next up, we got Shadow Cranidos, and this might just be the worst Pokemon ever. This Pokemon, I believe it's got basically the same stat product as like the Rampardos, the Archon Archeops, but its fast move options are Zen Headbutt, non-stab of course, and Takedown, which that is genuinely so bad. I can't imagine a single matchup that this Pokemon can actually win. Even against something like a Talonflame, you probably just get outpaced to 2 moves. And then if they boost up their attack stat, they probably get the KO with a Flame Charge or a Fly. Actually, they probably don't even need to boost there. Granados, super glassy, not fun at all to use. I've not used it yet. But if it did get a fast move update, maybe I would consider building one. But yeah, honestly, I can't imagine it's even possible to get wins with this Pokemon. But next up, we got Shadow Rampardos, and this Pokemon honestly would have been like here before the Smackdown nerf. Whereas now, unfortunately, it's only going to be usable in sort of limited metas where maybe flying types are really common and really dominant, where they just might not expect a Rampardos. Next up, we got Shadow Haunchcrow, and Haunchcrow, do I put it here? It's not quite as usable as Murkrow, but it's also a lot more fun to run than Murkrow, so maybe we just put it into this tier as well. Shadow Weavile, honestly, it's not great. It definitely needs a better fast move. Snarl just feels like so many different fast moves have been buffed over recent seasons, and Snarl is like way lagging behind. So if Snarl maybe does more damage in a future season, this could be good, but it's kind of hard to buff Snarl when you've got the likes of Mandibuzz and Umbreon, which would kind of be way too strong if Snarl was like a decent damaging move. So yeah, don't really know how you can buff this Pokemon. But yeah, honestly, it doesn't have much play. Now, Electivire, honestly, pretty underrated. You don't see it used much, but the Wild Charge and then Ice Punch combination allows you to hit for pretty much anything for at least neutral damage outside of like the Magneton line and, well, the Magnemite line and like Togedemaru and stuff like that. So yeah, honestly, like, pretty underrated. You think about all the Pokemon that resist the electric typing, Ice is typically super effective into those typings. Now, Shadow Magmortar is not quite as good, but actually, again, I think pretty underrated and is kind of useful, especially now that Mud Slappers aren't as common as they used to be. But next up, we've got Azelf. Azelf, unfortunately, is going to go down here. This Pokemon is just super underwhelming. It feels like it doesn't really hit that hard, but also because you've got Swift as your cheap charge move, which is really the only charge move you're going to get to, it's non-stab, it just feels a little bit underwhelming. Now, Shadow Dialga, gonna have to go in here. It's very difficult to use, quite slow to get to charge moves, but in certain limited metas, if you give it a shoot advantage, it beats literally everything. So this Pokemon can have some very niche usage, but yeah, I can't really put it any higher than that. Shadow Palkit, on the other hand, I think just because you've got access to Alcatel, it's a lot faster. It does have a little bit more play. It is a little bit more consistent than Shadow Dialga, so I'm going to have to put it there. Shadow Greninja, probably going to have to go into this tier. It is definitely a lot easier to use than a lot of these Pokemon as well. It's just super strong. You guys maybe haven't tried the Shadow version just yet, but you know how the regular version plays. And of course, with that Shadow bonus, just dealing more damage, you have a lot more one-shot potential. So yeah, gonna have to put it there. Now, Shadow Liepard is honestly, I don't really like using it because previously I have used it with Charm, so I'm gonna have to put it here. I honestly don't enjoy using it at all. And kind of the most important things about these Glass Cannon Pokemon is that you want them to be fun, because maybe they're not as strong as a lot of the other Pokemon in the meta. So if it's not fun, then what's even the point in it? Shadow Drillbur is gonna have to be, used to be better, but has fallen off big time because this Pokemon has Mud Slap and Rock Tomb, both of which got nerfed this season. Previously, honestly, was probably more playable than the Shadow Excadrill, whereas now, unfortunately, it is just not that great. But Excadrill, I might even put this here. I think it is definitely very usable in limited metas, but I do think it has some niche usage in the Open Great League. And with that Mud Shot now, very spammy, very fast to get to the charge moves, so I'm going to have to put it there. Now, Shadow Sork is the first one I'm going to put in, not an awful Pokemon, but also not that exciting. With its typical moveset, I believe it is Low Kick, Body Slam, and Brick Break. But it just feels like it doesn't really hit that hard. I think if you had Karate Chop, obviously just a strictly better upgrade compared to Low Kick, then it might be a little bit more usable. And then if it had a slightly cheaper but harder hitting move than the likes of Focus Blast, then it'd have some sort of nuke potential, might be more fun to use. But at the moment, honestly, it's just not that exciting to use. Now, Shadow Colossus is going to go in the so bad that I haven't even built one yet. Again, another Pokemon where its fast move options are like Zen Headbutt and Hidden Power, and I mean, certain Hidden Powers might be more usable than others, but generally speaking, yeah, just not a very good Pokemon at all. And then Duosion is at least cheaper to build, but I'm going to have to put it down here. One of the worst GBL investments that I've ever made. Now, Darmanitan, I'm going to have to put in very difficult to use, but can be fun in limited metas, especially metas where there are a lot of Pokemon weak to ice. This thing can absolutely shred through Pokemon with Ice Fang, and then actually coverage-wise, it's got access to Superpower, Overheat if you want to use it as well, Avalanche, really strong move as well, like great charge moves. I think maybe if it had Powder Snow, this thing could go all the way up here, but with Ice Fang, a little bit slower, makes it a little bit more one-dimensional. I can really only put it as high as this. Shadow Darmanitan, I think obviously Incinerate is a much better fast move than Ice Fang. However, I still can't really put it any higher than this, just because it is still a little bit slow to get to that first charge move, and so we're going to put it here. Now, we're going to just do Archon and Archeops both together. They're basically the exact same Pokemon, and unfortunately, whilst they did get buffed this season with Wing Attack, now, of course, generating energy as quickly as it used to, unfortunately, because Dragon Claw is now a 50 energy charge move, these guys can't quite spam charge moves as quickly as they used to, and when you're so attack weighted, it is really helpful to be able to outpace your opponents, apply some shield pressure really nice and early on, and when you can't do that, unfortunately, you kind of just suck. Now, next up, we got Zoroark, and I'm going to have to put this one here. It's just nowhere near as good as the Hisuian version. I think just the pure dark typing, obviously, there are just so many better dark types, but we've now got Hisuian Zorua, and again, I think I'm also going to put this here. There's really no reason to build this over Hisuian Zoroark, but I'm actually going to put the Zoroark. Honestly, I'm thinking about putting it here. Its typing is just so unique that, like, it does have a lot of play. You know what? Let's do it. Let's put it here. Next up, we got Chandelure. And Chandelure, I think maybe we put it into this tier. Like, this thing can honestly get so out of hand if you're resisting the fast move pressure. You get off a few flame charge boosts, this thing can just get absolutely crazy, and it's going to force a shield from basically anything. Next up, we've got Haxorus. Unfortunately, this Pokemon has really been nerfed. Not directly, but obviously Breaking Swipe costing 50 energy. Dragon Claw also costing 50 energy. Night Slash now only gives a single stage boost. Earthquake does less damage. Surf costs more energy than it used to. Dragon Tail doesn't deal as much damage as it used to. Counter also got nerfed. This Pokemon, basically every single move it has been nerfed at some point, which is just so awful for it. This thing genuinely used to be really fun to use. However, unfortunately, nowadays, it is really difficult to use. Next up, we've got Shadow Excelgor, and this Pokemon unfortunately has to go into one of my worst ever GBL investments. If it just had a cheaper charge move, honestly, it could be usable, but I think, like, I had a look at this Pokemon previously. I think its only cheap charge move that it learns in the main series games is Swift, which, of course, non-stab damage, probably not going to be that helpful for it. Obviously, it does have Water Shuriken, so it's really fast to generate energy, but at the moment, I think its cheapest charge move is Energy Ball or Grass Knot, something like that, which unfortunately just doesn't do it enough justice. But next up, we've got Mean Chow. So this Pokemon is actually pretty usable. I think one of the things I struggle with for this Pokemon is actually it's got so many good coverage moves that you kind of never have the move that you need, basically. If you want to run like Brick Break or Drain Punch to either boost your defense or debuff the opponent's defense, then you're kind of foregoing some pretty necessary coverage. Brutal Swing, I think, is needed just because of how cheap it is. But then obviously you've got Grass Knot or Stone Edge, both of which can be very useful, but you kind of, you feel like you need all of those options at the same time, which of course just isn't possible. And so yeah, I can't really put it any higher than this. Next up, Shadow Vikavolt. I think I'm going to have to put this one in the same tier here. Like, it does have some play. It's basically obviously just a much worse version of Charge Bug, but you do also have, like, you've got Mud Slap as an option, which obviously got nerfed this season, but could be very strong in limited metas. You've also got Fly for coverage, which could also be pretty cool. Next up, we've got Pheromosa, and I'm really borderline here. Like, Pheromosa, it has historically been one of the hardest Pokemon for me to use, but I do still enjoy using it, and it does have some niche usage where, like if you farm something down, you're basically nuking whatever comes in. But yeah, I probably have to unfortunately just put it in here. Kartana is so close to here. I think maybe do we put it into this tier? You know what? Yeah, we'll put it here. It's very easy to use at the moment. Fury Cutter, Leaf Blade, and then you can go with Sacred Sword or Night Slash. Obviously, it's you want to keep it away from fighting types, fire types, anything like that, and it will just get completely shredded. But yeah, actually pretty usable right now. We've now got Nargonadel, which is going to have to be, used to be better, but has fallen off big time. Again, another Pokemon that has unfortunately been nerfed with Dragon Claw now costing 50 energy. It's just way too slow to get to the charge moves. Now, Blacephalon, it has to go straight into the super fun to use, and actually also quite good. This Pokemon, like 2 Incinerates, and you already reach a Mind Blown, which is one of the best charge moves in the game. This thing is so fun to run. Might get nerfed next season if they do end up nerfing Shadow Ball, but at the moment at least, I would definitely consider this to be in the second tier. Next up, we got Regieleki. And this Pokemon, it is usable, definitely a lot more usable now with all the Mud Slappers being less common. Do I put it here or here? Probably has to go into this tier. Next up, we got Shadow Sneasler, and I feel like this Pokemon, it is really good, but is it as good as some of these Pokemon here? Honestly, it probably is, so we're going to put it there. We got Wugtrio, which is going to have to go in here. Unfortunately, Mud Slap and Dig have been nerfed since I built it, so it's just not as good as it used to be, and it honestly never used to be that good either. So honestly, it could even fall down into this category, but since it has been nerfed, I think we can put it here. Next up, Shadow Landorus, and this is a Pokemon that I've not used it in the Open Great League just yet, but in the recent Catch Cup, this Pokemon honestly was really strong, so I might just put it here, because obviously the Catch Cup, very similar meta to the Open Great League, so we're going to put it there. Then next up, we've got Shadow Tornadus, and I've not actually built this Pokemon, but also Air Slash and Bite as fast move options. This Pokemon is just going to be completely awful. Next up, we've got Shadow Thunderous, which doesn't really deserve to be here because I do think it is a lot more playable than everything else on this list. However, unfortunately, I can't afford to double move it at the moment. I don't have enough candies or enough Stardust, so it technically is bad enough that I've not built it yet. So, yep, we're going to have to put it there. And then finally, Shadow Regigigas. Another Pokemon where it's only got like hidden powers as fast move options, or what's this other option? I can't remember. But basically, absolutely awful Pokemon. And then here, I didn't actually mean to put this in. This is not as attack weighted as the rest of this list, but this is basically it here. So we got Shadow Cacturne. This is by far the most fun Pokemon to use. This list here, these Pokemon are very usable and also just extremely fun to use. And then even this tier here, and then yeah, this tier here, honestly, these Pokemon are very usable, even though it says hard to use. Obviously they are hard to use, but they are still very usable, and I would definitely consider building any of these Pokemon if you haven't already. This tier, they are fun, but my god, they are difficult to use. They really need specific metas to shine. Yeah, as I mentioned, I thought there'd be more Pokemon that fit into this category. Maybe this is a valid choice for the Zorua as well. Kind of just underwhelming, but yeah, not amazing. Probably wouldn't build it. Anyways, this Pokemon as well, Shadow Sawk, you had to raid during like Go Fest, like last year or the year before. So basically, if you chose to raid all of the Kyurem fusions instead, you probably don't even have this Pokemon. So yeah, I wouldn't rush to build this Pokemon for sure. These Pokemon certainly used to be a lot more usable. Could get buffed in the future, not really sure. These Pokemon, just absolutely awful. I do not recommend you build any of these. And then these are Pokemon that I probably will aim to build all of these in the future at some point, but I just definitely cannot recommend you build them yourselves. So yeah, that's going to be the tier list. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there are any that you massively disagree with or any that you do agree with. Actually, one Pokemon that I completely forgot to mention on the tier list that I have built is Inteleon. And unfortunately, this Pokemon is also going to go in the category of one of my worst ever GBL investments. This Pokemon currently has access to Water Gun, Surf, and Shadow Ball. Of course, Shadow Ball is a great move. It will eventually learn Hydro Cannon, but I think Water Gun is the main thing holding this Pokemon back. It just takes an absolute eternity to get through charge moves, and unfortunately, it also doesn't feel like it hits that hard either, considering how quickly it goes down to opponents' moves. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.